Coming into the F1 2026 season, we may very well have an 11th team on the grid for the first time in years. In November of 2024, Formula One management gave Cadillac provisional approval to join the crew. I'm Elizabeth Blackstock, US editor over at planetf1.com, and today on the F1 Word, I'll be walking you through everything you need to know about Cadillac F1. First up, let's establish a little context about how the Cadillac entry came to be. This team started life as Andretti Global. That team was helmed by Michael Andretti, and it first submitted an expression of interest to the FIA in 2023, where it outlined its action plan for becoming an 11th team on the F1 grid. It was only after the entry was submitted that Cadillac, a sub-brand of the US automaker General Motors, signed on with the promise of providing power units in the future. The FIA initially approved the Andretti entry, but that was really only the first step. To actually make it to F1, Formula One management also needed to give the team its seal of approval, and the FOM did not. In a pretty brutal rejection letter, the FOM stated that it didn't think Andretti Global had a strong enough case to warrant acceptance. It said F1 wouldn't benefit from the team. However, it did leave the door open for Cadillac to join the sport as a power unit manufacturer at some point in the near future. After that rejection, things got a little crazy. Mario Andretti, the father of Andretti Global team owner Michael Andretti, claimed that Greg Maffei, the CEO of Liberty Media, told him directly that he would personally guarantee Michael Andretti never gained entry to Formula One. Obviously, there was some bad blood there. Getting even crazier, Mario Andretti turned up at Capitol Hill ahead of the Miami Grand Prix, where he chatted with a few members of US Congress. Those Congress members were pretty miffed at the whole idea that this consortium of European teams could reject an American team and an American automaker from competing on equal terms with car companies like Aston Martin, McLaren, Ferrari, and Mercedes. They said they'd start looking into whether or not this could constitute a monopoly, and not long after, Liberty Media confirmed that the Department of Justice had indeed started digging into that rejection. So at that point, it kind of seemed like Andretti Global would probably never make it to Formula One, not with so many personal vendettas and legal investigations. But in October of 2024, something even more shocking happened. Michael Andretti announced he was stepping back from Andretti Global. That was a really big deal. Andretti had been in charge of the team since he bought the Forsyth Green Racing IndyCar team back in 2002, and then rebranded the operation to better fit his family name. Since then, Andretti has branched out to Formula E, Extreme E, Australian supercars, and endurance racing, all on top of trying to break into Formula One. Instead, Andretti would be promoting his team's co-owner, Dan Tauris, to the lead. Dan Tauris is basically the lifeblood behind the Andretti Global petition of interest for Formula One. See, Dan is a financial investor from Indiana who first got into racing via a driver named Zach Veach. Veach was looking for a sponsor for the 2017 Indy 500, and his pastor put him in touch with Tauris, the CEO and president of Group 1001 in Cambridge. The next year, when Veach finally signed a full-time deal with Andretti and IndyCar, he brought Tauris' sponsorship right along with him. Tauris fell in love, going so far as to buy an ownership stake in Andretti Global. It was also his funding that allowed the team to invest in new facilities and to expand into new forms of motorsport and to submit that entry for a Formula One team. So Tauris was pretty important. Now he's in charge of Andretti Global through a company called TWG Global. TWG Global is an investment vehicle for Mark Walter, the co-founder and CEO of Guggenheim Capital. Tauris is the CEO of TWG Global's motorsport arm, but TWG also partially owns franchises like the Los Angeles Dodgers, as well as part of the Premier League club Chelsea FC, and the entirety of the Professional Women's Hockey League. In a Formula One press release, TWG Global has largely replaced Andretti Global when referring to the name of the team behind the Cadillac entry. But it's not really clear whether or not Andretti has been totally scrubbed from the operation, or what the status on Cadillac's naming rights will be. Again, critically, Tauris is the guy with the money. Andretti was only able to expand into so many other different racing series because Tauris could pay for it. Andretti could build its new state-of-the-art race shop in Indiana because Tauris had the money. And the whole Formula One petition simply wouldn't have happened if Tauris hadn't backed it. That was the only way Andretti would have ever had the funds to get to F1. So, now he's the big dog in charge these days. With Tauris in charge, Formula One relented a little bit. In November of 2024, it stated that Cadillac and F1 had reached an agreement in principle, which basically means that if things stay on the right track and no one makes anyone else mad, we will see Cadillac join the F1 grid in 2026. And yes, before you're asking, Mario Andretti is still a little bit involved. The 1978 F1 World Champion has been invited to join the Cadillac F1 operation as an advisor. As he told PlanetF1.com in January, he doesn't want a job and he doesn't have any dreams of team ownership. He just wants to be able to advise on driver selection and maybe have a chance to work with those drivers as they prep for Formula One. A lot of folks are understandably confused about why F1 accepted Cadillac now, and that's a question that doesn't really have a definitive answer, and it could involve any number of factors. Maybe the departure of Michael Andretti had something to do with it, or the Department of Justice investigation forced someone's hand. Or maybe the news that Greg Maffei is leaving Liberty Media meant that personal vendetta against Michael Andretti was no longer quite as big of a deal. Plus, Renault is also leaving F1, and that's going to leave a gap in the power unit constructor market. But two things are very clear. First and foremost, interest from a big-name company like General Motors seems to be exactly what F1 was going for when it opened up its expression of interest. A multi-billion-dollar company, and an American one at that, is particularly important to the series' growth. Plus, F1 has also admitted that GM and Cadillac had hit countless critical operational milestones, even though it was rejected. That includes building its state-of-the-art team facilities and actually developing a car based on the 2026 regulations. Plus, that prototype has been said to have already met the FIA's frontal impact standards. If you're looking for commitment, you're not going to get much better than a team that's building a car even though you told them no. So, here we are today. Cadillac is coming to F1 in 2026. For the first few years, Ferrari's going to provide the team's power units until Cadillac's Works power unit is ready to go. After that, we're going to see an American automaker join the likes of Audi, Mercedes, Ferrari, Ford, and Honda in supplying powerful F1-ready engines. And yes, Cadillac is already working on them. In early January, the automaker announced that it had created a new company called GM Performance Power Units, which will be totally dedicated to researching, designing, and producing that F1 power unit. At the helm is a man named Russ Oblenz, who has over 30 years of experience designing performance powertrains for GM's racing programs and for its passenger cars. Oblenz is also the guy who's currently heading Cadillac's new hybrid hypercar GTP engine program in IMSA and the World Endurance Championship, so he has some experience competing in big events like the 24 Hours of Le Mans. On top of that, we know that Graham Loudon has been signed on as team principal for Cadillac F1. You might remember Loudon from his time as team principal at Manor, or more recently, for being Zhou Guanyu's manager. He's also been playing a pretty key role in helping Cadillac and Andretti figure out the wild world of Formula One. But for now, that's all we know. There are still a lot of big questions up in the air, like what brands will sponsor the team, and what everyone really cares about, who's going to drive for them. There have been plenty of rumors and theories. Let us know your thoughts down in the comments. From what it sounds like, Cadillac is looking to sign some American talent, and maybe a more experienced driver who already knows the ropes in F1. For all of the latest updates on Cadillac's F1 program, don't forget to check out PlanetF1.com, and stay tuned here at the F1 Word. I'm Elizabeth Blackstock, and I'll see you next time.